John, thank you and congratulations.
Oh.
A1F Freedom Award, our annual award, our big award, what we give. All you've done. I mean, I've literally had kids, well, adults, because they've gone through your program, tell me that you saved their life, that they would be dead or in jail. I know it's a lot to hear.
It is.
If it wasn't for you and Camp Comps Academy, and they're in Allentown, Pennsylvania, all you've done with them. You retired now as an elementary school teacher.
I am.
You're still doing that program,
Correct.
but you were going around the nation, talking to people, showing them what you did and how they can also save these kids, save lives by using the good culture that we all know and love through hunting. How's it going as you're traveling and talking to people?
And I always reflect on when you say saved, right? It's become such a strong word for me.
That's what they told me.
Yeah, I know. And I set out to just change people. I never set out to save anybody. But the more I hear that from you, right? The more that you bounce that back, it makes me realize that I have to be that much more of a fighter, for the kids in the United States. So it's something where, our hope is now that I'm retired from school, I have a little more time on my hands. And what we're hoping to do is to share the philosophy of Camp Compass. We don't need to have a Camp Compass name in every community. We would love to have the Camp Compass philosophy in every community. So our goal is to start to teach people, especially in the firearm side of it, how to elongate their caring for kids, right? We can't become firearm the owners, shooters, the culture with one day, right? So there's a process that we put our kids through. There's a process we put our adults through. And that in turn makes the community stronger. If you make the community stronger, what happens then is people start looking at what it is and then they can't argue against it.
Right, learning the skills, learning the responsibility for whatever endeavor they're going to go into, whether it's turkey hunting or deer hunting or fishing even. Learning those skills and this process, the responsibility that goes with having that firearm and all the training you do on a simulator. First, I've seen that in your classroom.
Yeah, there's a lot of simulation because you gotta realize, especially a kid that's never shot a gun, whether it's somebody's grandkid or whether it's one of my kids at Camp Compass, there are processes that we put on kids through so that they're as prepared as they can be. There's that old adage, somebody threw their old 12 gauge at somebody and, their shoulder hurts and now they don't want to shoot anymore. Well, just this morning, it's our youth turkey season and I'm going to knock on wood because we were 8 for 8 and I'm not there, so I won't ever be in turkey camp ever again. But we have some kids that can handle 20 gauges. We have some kids that can handle 410s, right? So we get to know. At one point, all we had was 12 gauges because that's the product that was there. But there are so many good ways to educate. There's so many good ways to grow people that we need to continue to take advantage of that. And the only, if you don't know, you got to search out the answer, right? Because once that tire is flat, you got to go to the repair shop. You can't get that back. So it's a very dainty subject. It's a very specific subject when you're trying to grow kids through the gun.
Right. And a guy like me, I grew up in that culture. It was just a part of my father, my grandfather hunted. Guns were handed down to me. There was a culture there that I learned. It was raised up through. You're taking that to kids. Well, I'm guessing a lot are from single family or single parent households. A lot of them have challenges, other things. A lot of them have never dealt with any of this.
Correct.
And what I always wonder about is when you're talking to the parents, and you tell them, I'm going to have your kid through the simulator, learn how to shoot, learn the NRA rules of gun safety. They're going to go through this process. When they become safe, I'll take them to the range. I'll teach them how to shoot. But that parent doesn't understand that process, but they're trusting you. How do you win that trust?
You know what? We could probably write a book about that trust, right? Because there's once again, there's a process, right? It's the way you walk, it's the way you talk, it's the way that you prove yourself, right? If I think back, 30 years when I first started the program compared to now it's a cakewalk, right? Because you have all this media, you have all, the years of people vouching for you, so it's a little easier now. However, when I first started, that's where the trenches were dug, right? Because John Annoni was just a school teacher. But what ended up happening is there was a connection that I shared with kids, and it was a personal connection. It wasn't a gun connection. It wasn't an outdoor connection. It was a personal connection. And then what happens is it's a simple question is, hey, Frank, what do you like to do with yourself? Well, when they say, hey, Mr. Annoni, what do you like to do with yourself? Well, this is what I do. And I say it proudly. This is what, and then they go, oh, I never even knew that. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't. And then you say, well, I'd be more than happy to share it with you based on these steps, right? So it's not about the product. It's about the person.
I get that kids want a path to adventure, and you're offering them an incredible adventure, series of adventures, really. But what about the parent? Is the kid going home and selling the parent?
Well, you know what? It goes both ways. You put a gun in the kid's arm, and he goes home bruised. Well, guess what? You just that parent has a different protocol for what just happened. Sure. The parents, you make it very clear that you love their child and that you're investing in their child. It's not about, hey, your kid's gonna get to shoot the gun, or hey, your kid's, those are tools, those are activities that we get to do, but it's the investment, getting parents to believe that you are investing in their child for the betterment of their future is the key. And you can do it with a basketball coach, you can do it with a football coach, you can do it with a shooting coach. The bottom line is you need to make sure that the parents understand that you are investing in their child, that there is gonna be a good return on whatever it is. Because even if my kids don't keep shooting, there was still a return, there was still a growth return, right? And then when you tie that in with academics, when a kid comes home and says, Mom, I shot at 50 yards today, and a parent is like, 50, how far is 50 yards? Well, it's 5 car lengths, it's 7 car lengths. Wow, you shot that far. And then when they start talking academics, now the parents are looking and going, oh my gosh, my kid's talking and reading and doing things that they normally wouldn't do in the traditional school, right? So there's a package of investment. That's the best way I can put it. And some people may think I'm crazy for it. And I can tell you that our everybody wants rapid growth, immediate returns, right? This piece here, unfortunately, there are no quick returns on it.
No, it's investment. And I saw that when I visited with Camp Compass Academy. The kids were actually doing schoolwork in there, and you had other volunteer teachers in there helping. And the grades had to be at a certain level before you let them get that reward of going to the range and getting ready for turkey season or what season they're getting ready for.
Yeah,
that's an incredible incentive.
Well, and that's the thing. And I think about how many gun clubs and how many friends of NRAs banquets that we have, and I'm looking and I'm going, we need to systematically attack those opportunities to start building and implementing the philosophy. Like I said, we don't want the name. You can have the name, it's yours. All we want to do is see kids win. And if we can help them win through our culture, well, then guess what happens to our culture? Our culture wins, right? So it's something where this can be done with somebody starting in 6th grade. This can be done with an adult. I mean, it's just a different way of grooming.
Right. A kid who's gone through Camp Compass Academy or has dealt with you, I would imagine is much more likely to vote for their freedom as an adult.
It's the understanding that and you got to realize, once again, it gets back to that caring. And if this person invests with me, and that's typically a mentality we have. If you invest with me, I'm going to ride with you. I'm going to remember who you are. You took care of me, right? And that's where I look and I go, once again, all these gangs across America, they don't have any recruiting problems. How can we be sitting here talking about we don't have people? It flusters me in regards to that. But once again, somebody invests in you. I won this prestigious award. I'm never going to forget that. Somebody cared about me, right? So it's my obligation to care back, and that's that seesaw of caring that we need to get people on.
So let's say someone's listening to this, and they want to know more about you. How do they? It's pretty hard to get into philosophy or teaching, right?
Correct.
So how have you laid it out? I know you've done a couple of books and you've got great websites. Where would you point them to?
You know what? I wouldn't even point them to me first. I'd point them to the mirror. I'm just being honest with you, Frank. I'd point them to the mirror, and then they got to ask themselves the question: is how serious do they want to be, right? What are their expectations? And once that's cleaned and clarified, then you have something to build off of, right? But it's the passion, it's the purpose, it's the person, right? That's going to move things forward. So if somebody wants to talk to me, right, I'm more than happy to talk to them. But I need to make sure that they've had a talk with themselves first, because once again, this is not for the faint of heart. I don't want to scare anybody, right? But when you commit to growing a kid, I mean, people commit. Let's just say puppy dogs, right? When we get a puppy dog, we know that that's going to be a commitment. Vet bills and food bills and water and feed every day. Well, when you commit to bringing a kid into a culture, right? If you think that you're just going to take that puppy out of the pound, pet it, and put it back in, you didn't do anything. You visited with it. You didn't live with it. This is what we need to live with. So it's my hope that somebody looks and says, hey, I want to commit to making kids better, and I realize it's going to take some time, and I'm willing to invest some of that time. And like I said, I don't want to scare anybody, because you can go do a one-day event, and I think that's great for exposure, right? But if we don't start to get beyond that, right? We say at Camp Compass we have 5 E's, right? There's exposure and exploration. Those are your youth field days, and I'm not knocking anybody's hustle, but until we start to elongate, and until we start to continually communicate, I'm looking and going, hey, if we have even here at our NRA youth events, they're great. I look and I go, are we asking kids, hey, in 6 months or in 4 months when your report card comes out, are you sending them to us so that we can show how many honor kids that we have here? Are we building that out? Are we keeping in contact? Not just pushing, what we want to do, but also, pulling in what other people are doing as well.
I don't think any local gun club or other group could suddenly have Camp Compass.
Understood.
It took years to grow that. But what if they say wanted to sponsor? Heck, that'd be a great way to do it. Sponsor 2 or 3 kids, bring them in, start a process of learning for them and for the kids, because you're both learning. It's like being a parent, right?
That's the key to keeping your gun club alive.
Right.
Well,
let's say they want to start that. How do they begin that?
Okay.
Where do they go for the resources?
It depends upon if they already have youth programs in place, right? Basically, it's assessing their calendar. The first thing you do is look at your calendar. And based on your calendar, you start to look at where your gaps are. Are there gaps between, let's say now it's turkey season. It'll go turkey season, fishing season. It'll come back to dove season. So you look and you go, well, in July and August, it's slow. What can we implement in here in that slow period to maintain momentum of kids continually
coming? A gun
coming?
club would have a turkey shoot. They'd have ski championships. They would have all these things that they could integrate a couple of kids into.
Correct.
Process
they use their calendar. You use your calendar to do that. And then what happens is you have one person at your gun club that oversees the kids committing to these programs. And then what happens is it becomes cyclic, right? Because now once a kid completes their first year, now they might be eligible to do something special at the gun club. You might be able to get a couple of volunteers that are and do a special clay shoot, or but you can build that out based on your calendar. It's not a hard thing to do. It's just a little bit of diligence, right? And a little bit of stick-to-itiveness in regards to, I'm going to keep in contact with our kids, and we're going to keep moving them forward and keep moving them forward. And if they find something that they really, really, really like, let's say you get a kid that's shooting archery, and all of a sudden this kid has become a super archer, right? Then what you do is you funnel that kid, you find somebody in your club, right? That not is just the archery director, but looks and says, I'm committed to checking up on this kid because these are our future goals for him or her.
Okay. So they're creating a program.
Correct.
And a point person always makes sense to me.
Correct.
So about pointing people, hopefully whet some appetites out there. Where can they go to find out? Tell me your websites, your books.
Sure. 2 books. From the Hood to the Woods was my first. That is my story. And then my second one, Beyond One Day. That's about the philosophy of Camp Compass and how just one day isn't going to do it, right? We need to grow kids beyond one day. You can visit campcompass.org.com. You can visit John Annoni, ANNONI.com or .org, or you can visit Hunting Awareness, your choice. Or just Google me, for heaven's sakes. You know, I just want to say thank you. This has been a great experience, and it's neat to see that there's a shift from, usually it's top to bottom, and I'm kind of a bottom guy, and it's like, now somebody at the bottom, from the community has garnered a real large award, and that's, my hat's off to you all for recognizing that.
The more John Annoni we can get, the better. Thank you, John.
I appreciate it, Frank.